I've been a Rush fan since before I was born. My dad was a Rush super fan. It's been just a part of my life since the very beginning. So when I found out that Geddy Lee had made a memoir and that he had narrated it, I was like, well, I was already going to read it, but now that I know it's narrated by him, I'm going to have to listen to it right away. So I got it and I just immediately started it, and it is fantastic. It is so good. Instead of making a video where I just gush about the book for 4 or 5 minutes, what I want to do is talk about my 5 favorite Rush songs. And as I go through them, I'll just kind of talk about parts of the book that I liked and kind of how they work alongside these songs. Before I get into that, I want to talk about a very special chapter in the book. Before Geddy Lee even talks about his own life, he dedicates an entire chapter to his parents and how they survived the Holocaust. He tells a beautiful story about how his parents managed to find love while they were surviving death camps. That chapter alone makes this book worth reading for just about anyone. But man, this book is a must read for Rush fans, and it's a must read for anyone that just enjoys memoirs. It's just so wonderfully written. Another quick thing, anytime Geddy mentioned a song while I was listening to the audiobook, I would just take a moment and listen to some of the song or listen to the whole thing. Really locks you into that era of Rush that he's talking about. And if you're a Rush fan, as soon as he mentions an album, you're like, oh, I know exactly what they look like then, because they've always got the pictures of themselves in the back of the album or whatever. Before I just ramble nonsensically for 5 minutes about how amazing the book is, let's just get right into my top 5 favorite Rush songs of all time. These aren't in any particular order other than chronological order, because that was the easiest way to do it. The first song I have on my list is The Spirit of Radio. This is new to my top 5. It was creeping into it, but after reading the memoir, it is now permanently affixed to my top 5. Read the book and then go watch the animated music video they put out a couple years ago. It will bring you so much joy as you try to hold back tears. The lyrics are just Neil talking about his joy of music and how the radio tied us all together. One of the things about that song that kind of bums me out is I feel like that's gone now. There's not like the common radio station that everyone listens to. I feel like with the fragmentation of media, we've kind of lost those common shared references, and it's just kind of sad. But when you watch the video, you see all these little things that Geddy had talked about in the book. It's just really cool to see in one video, because the music video itself goes through all of the history of Rush, and it's just really cool. In the book, they talk about their breakthrough, and it's just really interesting that it involved the radio and just working class people wanting to hear their songs. So definitely go check out that video, listen to that song, and let's move on to the next one. Vital Signs is the next one, and this song is just too good not to have on the list. I love it. Every single part of the song, the composition, everything, it's just flawless. Geddy in the book talks about the MTV revolution and how you had to have music videos. Before that, they'd had a couple music videos, but it wasn't really a big deal. But after MTV, of course, it was like make or break for a lot of bands. He talks about how they did their best to film videos while maintaining their integrity and budget. This video is a little corny, but after reading the memoir, you'll see that they did their best with the rules that they agreed to as a band. I don't want to spoil a lot of stuff in this book because it's just so good. Just go read it. But yeah, Vital Signs is awesome. The video is hilarious. More than anything right now, I really want the Montreal Expos hat that Neil is wearing in that video. And I found it. They still produce it. It's a retro edition that New Era makes, and it's beautiful. I'll put it right here. Here's a little thing that I want you to check out. When you get to the end of that video or song, pay close attention. Neil is double pedaling at the end of that. This song was recorded in 1981, and you've got him double pedaling, and it just sounds so good. It's not over the top or anything. You just kind of hear it, and it just fits in flawlessly at the end of the song. Next on the list is After Image, and I'm gonna do my best not to cry as I talk about this song. I lost my dad almost 6 years ago now, and this was his favorite song. I loved the song before he passed away, but man, now that he's gone, it's even harder to listen to. He used to play it a lot when he was thinking about his friends that he had lost. Now I listen to it when I want to think about him. Geddy talks about this song in the book, and there's a fair bit of the book dedicated to those that he's lost. He talks about all these different people and, when they passed away and the effect it had on him and those around him and stuff. He says that those losses were a big motivator for him finally getting around to writing a memoir, because he wanted this stuff down on paper before he got too old to remember or before he passed away unexpectedly. And then we've got everything in the book about Neil's losses and then his battle with cancer. It's just so beautifully written. Geddy's love for him comes off the pages in such a wonderful and tragic way. He does a great job of expressing the importance of being thankful for the people you have in your life and also being thankful for the time you had with the people you've lost. It's just a great song. I think it's one of Alex Lifeson's best guitar solos. I don't know how he manages to put such a strong sense of loss into a guitar solo. It's just magnificent. All right, I managed to get through that without crying, so let's move on to the next song. Mystic Rhythms. I have loved this song since I was a little kid watching it on my dad's copy of Chronicles. Chronicles was like a best of collection of songs. And then the Chronicles VHS tape was a collection of all their music videos. I think I wore that VHS tape out. I love that video so much, and it was just so weird and creepy for a little kid. I just will always have fond memories of that, and I just really love the song. In the book, Geddy talks about the recording process for each album, and unlike other albums, he looks on the Power Window sessions quite fondly. He said that that's one of their better albums. I think as an artist, you don't look very favorably on a lot of the stuff you've done just because the amount of effort and pain that it took to make that album. So other people would be like, this is fantastic, and you're like, that's fine. But even early on, he said he really liked what they did with Power Windows, and he looks at Power Windows as a finalization of concepts that they developed from Grace Under Pressure and Signals. He talks about it in the book that was kind of the way it always worked with them. They would have a couple of albums that were like mini concept albums. There would be little things in there that they were experimenting with. And then the third album in the run would be a completion of the ideas and styles that they were trying to get across. He talks about that with Fly By Night and Caress of Steel. That ends up becoming 2112. And then A Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres ends up being Permanent Waves. It's really fascinating in the book. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but I have a heavy bias toward 1980s Rush, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that that was the main decade that I listened to as a child. Nothing to do with it. Let's get to the last song, which has nothing to do with the 80s. Test for Echo. The Test for Echo tour was the first time I got to see Rush. It was such a great experience. I sat with my dad in the grass at Coca-Cola Starplex, if any of you even know what that is. And during almost every song, he told me about the previous Rush concerts he'd been to and about when those songs were new. It was just such a wonderful experience. I still have my dad's Test for Echo shirt. That thing, I kid you not, is disintegrating. It's just falling apart. I want to get like a case to put it in, like a display case, because I just want to keep it forever. It's such a cool shirt. He wore that thing well beyond when it was okay to keep wearing. There's so many holes in it. It's just disintegrating. But it's a really cool thing that I still have, and I really appreciate it. In the book, I kept an ear out for any time Geddy mentioned going through Texas, because my dad went to just about every Rush concert in the 1980s that happened in Texas, at least in North Texas. So yeah, as he's talking about him in the book, I'm like keeping an ear out. It's not like he's gonna mention my dad or anything, but it was cool to hear about a time when Rush was playing and then to know that my dad was probably at that concert. I just really appreciated it. Another thing about this song, Geddy specifically talks about this song in the book, and it's really cool, the background behind it. The song was inspired by just loneliness or feeling like you're the only one out there. Like the Test for Echo was sending out a signal and only getting your own voice back, and that isolation. I just thought that it was really interesting. And another thing about Test for Echo was, one, it was the last album produced by Peter Collins, who they had basically worked with forever. And two, it was the last one before Neil had his tragic loss of his daughter and his wife. And, you know, Rush was basically done for 5 years after that. Geddy talks about that in the book too, that he never thought Neil was going to come back. And all he really cared about was making sure that Neil could move on, have a life after what happened to him. He talks about it toward the end of the book, that when Neil came back and they recorded those last few albums and had those tours and stuff, and he thinks it's some of the best music they've ever made. And he just thought of that as like getting more than he ever expected he would get from the band. And I just thought that was really cool. As you can probably tell by my reddening eyes and my cadence when I'm talking, the book really got to me. Getting to experience the history of Rush through Geddy Lee was just super fascinating to me. And the whole time I'm listening to it, you know, I'm thinking about my dad. I'm thinking about how much the music has meant to me. And it's such an amazing thing. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Let me know in the comments what your favorite Rush songs are. Give me your top 5 and I'll listen to them. I'll link mine in the description too, so you can check them out. I'm just going to do YouTube links because it's easy. And thanks for watching. With that, I'll see you next time.